This is the all-new Phantom PS5 controller from HexGaming, and after a few weeks of testing it, I'm really impressed. It's got everything you'd expect from a Pro controller and more for a great price. I'd even argue it's the best value PS5 controller there is, but that doesn't mean everything is perfect, as you'll see throughout this review. It comes in a super sleek looking box, and once opened, you'll find this compact carry case which is protected with a hard outer shell. Oh, and a big thanks to HexGaming for sending out the Phantom so far ahead of launch, making this review possible. Opening the case up then, you can see the controller itself, and wow do I love this design. There are loads of other options too, such as a minimalistic black, but I opted for the Vision White colour as with the blue accenting, it matches both my setup and channel colours perfectly. Before taking a further look though, you'll notice a small container in front of the controller, which is where all the extra thumbsticks live. Hex do include 8 of these with every controller, and there are 5 different types, each varying in height and shape to match your preferences. We'll take a closer look at the options provided here later in the video. Also included in this is a nifty little tool that can only be described as magic. Honestly, this thing is outright genius, and I can't wait to show you what it does later in the video, so stay tuned for that. Looking in the top section of the case, you'll find some joystick protector rings, which are really easy to install if you do want to protect the controller from rubbing against the thumbstick plastic, and then there's also a braided 4-meter USB to USB-C charging cable. I should mention that both the charging cable and carry case are optional extras for $10 via the Kickstarter campaign, which does end July 12th, or $20 once the controller officially launches in August. Links to both will be in the description. Anyways, going back to the controller itself, it feels great to hold and is only 17 grams heavier than a regular Dualsense, so it should feel pretty familiar. To increase comfort even further, it also features performance-enhanced rubber grips on the back of the controller, which feel excellent and will prevent the controller from slipping out of your hand in those cases where you're the last alive in your squad and just trembling with fear. We've all been there, and trust me, this does help a lot. However, I have got to be honest and say that whilst I love the white and blue colours of this particular design, I'm not a fan of the shade of grey that is used for the grip and other parts of the trim. I think it looks a tad cheap in comparison to the rest of the controller, and would have preferred this to have just been white. That said, it's not like it's on the front, and I do believe the Vision White colour is the only option with this grey, and most others use a much deeper black, which looks a lot more premium to me. What do you think though? Let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to give you a heart. Whilst you're down there, please consider subscribing to help me reach my goal of 100,000 subscribers. I'm so close and would really appreciate your help to get there. Anyway, as I've said multiple times now, I do love the overall design of all the colour options, and I'm a particular fan of how this white and blue complements my setup. The front shell does feature a sort of sharp framing around the face buttons too that I also love, and the build quality for all aspects feels premium, so I have no issues there, and I'm confident you'd feel the same after trying it for yourself. The exact same can be said for all the included thumbsticks, and I don't see these ever starting to peel either. Speaking of the thumbsticks, of the 8 included, there are 5 entirely different designs. You get 2 regular concave sticks, 2 concave sticks that have an extended width, 1 concave stick that has an extended length, 1 regular domed stick, and then 2 domed sticks with the extended length. Installing them is incredibly easy too, as it's simply a case of pushing them down until you hear them click into place. Personally, I've decided to use the extended width concave stick for movement, so have attached that to L3, and I'm then using the heightened dome stick for R3, as it allows me to have more control over my aim, leading to greater precision in shooters, or better camera control in action-adventure games such as Spider-Man. Now that we've got our preferred thumbsticks installed, let's take a look at the 4 rear buttons and how they work. Now, I must say I'm really pleased with the placement of these back buttons, and I don't think they could feel any more natural. If you've got a DualSense controller nearby, pick it up as though you're about to hop into some games and pay close attention to where your fingers are resting on the back. If you hold it anything like me, your fingers will be resting naturally in the exact positions of where the back buttons are located, and because of this, I can easily say that out of all the PS5 Pro controllers that offer 4 back paddles, this is by far the most comfortable to use. Another significant advantage it has over all other similar controllers is that it still fits straight on the official charging dock with no need for modifications. This is extremely important to me and is why I currently use the DualSense Edge more than any other controller, even though it only has the 2 rear paddles. I think this Phantom controller might have stolen that #1 spot now though. Oh, and in addition to all of this, each of the buttons have a nice tactile mouse click sort of feedback to them too, which further adds to that premium feel. Now, if you aren't familiar with Pro controllers, then the reason these back buttons are so important in the first place is that you're able to essentially use the face buttons without needing to remove your thumb from a thumbstick. For shooters, that means you're able to jump, slide, melee, etc. all mid gunfight without disturbing your aim, which gives you a significant competitive advantage. For single player action adventure games such as Marvel's Spider-Man, I still find them incredibly useful to have, as you can perform a variety of attacks and dodges while still being able to move the camera around, which both enhances the gameplay and cinematic feel. Anyway, you can map the 4 back buttons super easily by holding the remap button on the back of the controller for 3 seconds until the light flashes. You're now in the back button settings mode, where you can map any of the other buttons on the controller to them by simultaneously holding the back button you want to map and the button you wish to assign to it. You should then see the indicator light on the back of the controller quickly flash 3 times to show that the mapping has been successful. Repeat this process for all the back buttons, and if you ever want to remove a mapping, it's the exact same process, but you'll want to hold down the buttons you want to unlink and the light will slowly flash this time. If you want to go that step further and unmap all the buttons at once for a particular profile, then you can do that too by simultaneously holding L1, R1, up, left, triangle and circle. The indicator light will blink slowly to confirm it's worked. So as you've seen, the buttons are super easy to map, and it doesn't stop there. You can actually map up to 6 different configurations all at once that you can then switch between by just double clicking the settings button, and you'll see you're cycling through the different profiles as they're denoted by the colour of the light. This is unbelievably useful, as if you need to have different mappings for different games, you can easily save them all at once, considering you have 6 profiles available to you. For comparison's sake, the DualSense Edge only allows 4 to be saved to the controller, and the most other third-party brands go up to is 3, so Hex have quite literally doubled this. Moving on, another feature I've not even mentioned yet are the mouse click triggers, which give you a huge advantage in competitive shooters. Instead of needing to pull R2 all the way back each time you want to shoot, the trigger instead works identically to how clicking a mouse works. It's almost instant, as it only moves 1.5mm. This is significantly advantageous in gunfights, as not only can you aim down sights faster, but you'll be the first to start shooting, and if you're using a pistol or burst weapon, you can spam fire it so much faster. Just look at this, the difference is night and day. Now, you might be thinking that there are other controllers that use the same trigger system as this, but HexGaming's Phantom controller is the only one where you can switch between mouse click triggers and the adaptive triggers. You can easily do so by just sliding the toggles on the back of the controller. There are markings to show which side is which, with the shorter being the digital option, of course. So unlike those other Pro controllers, you aren't being forced to choose which trigger type you want when you buy, as you get to keep both and just switch depending on the game. I absolutely love this for the fact that you can still feel the adaptive trigger effects when playing non-competitive story games, whilst having that option to switch to the digital triggers when you actually need them, rather being forced to always have them on. I should mention that the DualSense Edge does have a similar system in the way that you can reduce how far the adaptive trigger goes in, but as this user's trigger stops, the shortest option on the Edge is still nowhere near as instant as the fully digital triggers on the Phantom controller. If you think you'll use a Pro controller for both racing games and shooters, then honestly, I think the Phantom is your only choice, and I can't emphasize how much I appreciate this feature. I've always hated having to choose which trigger type I want when getting Pro controllers, and this completely eliminates that concern. However, I must say that I am disappointed that this only applies to the triggers and not the bumpers. Whilst yes, the bumpers don't need it quite the same as the triggers, it would help further enhance the premium feel of the controller in my opinion. In fact, it would be brilliant if Hex gave us the option to have mouse click face buttons as well, and if they do this in the future, I think the Phantom would be entirely unbeatable. That's further aided by the fact that this controller is immune to stick drift. Yep, you heard me right. You can buy with confidence knowing that you won't ever experience that annoying drift, even after years of constant use, giving the Phantom yet another massive advantage over other options. Now, for this to be possible, Hex gives you 2 options when purchasing the controller. The first is that you can pay an extra $20 for Hall effect joysticks, which use magnets to track movement, and thus will never never develop any drift no matter how long you use the controller for, and the second option comes at no extra charge and is for the controller to include drift fix modules paired with the traditional potentiometer stick system. So whilst these sticks can still develop drift over time, the controller includes that additional drift fix system that lets you counter this drift to then eliminate it. This is the option I've gone for, so I can show you how it works. First, you open the flap on top of the controller to reveal the tunable drift fix system. You'll also want to get the container that the thumbsticks were included in and remove this tool, which is what we'll use to fix the drift. Now, with the controller plugged into a computer, you can use Hex's website to see any existing drift and then use the tool to adjust the different axes until the drift is eliminated. The two options on the left are for L3's X and Y axes respectively, and then the same goes for the two on the right, but those being for R3. You can see each axis is marked here too to avoid any confusion. Honestly, I think this is an extremely innovative idea from Hex to provide a cost-free solution to fixing drift, and you won't find this with any other Pro controller. That said, for the sake of $20, I would recommend upgrading to the Hall Effect system, as that way you'll never develop any drift at all and you won't have to take the time away from gaming to fix it. It's awesome that Hex are providing these options, and it really sets the Phantom controller even further apart from all other PS5 Pro controllers on the market. Overall then, HexGaming's Phantom controller has got an excellent design with performance enhancing grips, 4 perfectly placed back buttons with 6 configurable profiles, both a digital and adaptive trigger system, a variety of thumbstick options, all in addition to being immune to stick drift and being able to go directly onto the official Dualsense charging station. So for the current price of just $200, I think it's pretty safe to say that you are getting the best Pro controller currently available for a lower price than any other comparable option. If you're interested in purchasing at this price, then you must do so before July 12th via Kickstarter, as when it fully launches in August, it will increase to $230, that you can use code Octorious to bring that down by 5%. Links to both Kickstarter and the pre-order page will be in the description. Even at the increased launch price, I still think this is an excellent deal, and HexGaming's Phantom controller has genuinely become my favourite Dualsense to use on all games on both PS5 and PC, beating out my previous favourite, which was the Dualsense Edge. Speaking of, to see my full review of the Dualsense Edge, click the video on screen now or watch the one below it for my full thoughts and guide on the Pulse Elite headset. Also, please drop a like if you enjoyed this review or found it helpful, as well as subscribe to help me reach that goal of 100,000. I'd really appreciate it.